The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to a new Zeta report here on USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. We are live first Mondays of every month here on Blog Talk Radio, and also on the YouTube channel for Nancy Leader, which I'd like to introduce back to the show. By the way, my name is Andre. I'm with USA EBN. I'd like to welcome back to the show Nancy Leader from Zeta Talk. Nancy, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm very happy to be here today. I want to try to help our listenership to connect the dots to see how, while the news is reporting independent things like, oh, we have a heat wave or, oh, the flood, these are not ad hoc occurrences. They are all related. They are cascade events, in fact, from the presence and approach of Nibiru. But before I get into that, let me read our standard disclaimer. In partnership with USA EBN, Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do in a worst-case scenario. We will also inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact, it is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate but have been wrong on occasion. Bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, please visit zetatalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. As the daily wobble becomes more violent, slinging the earth up and down and from side to side, more than earthquakes and violent eruptions occur, as recent news shows. The atmosphere, the blanket of air wrapping the earth, is jerked around too as the earth moves under this blanket. Temperature extremes rapidly changing and storms caused by high and low pressure areas building and colliding suddenly. Drought and deluge result. Plate stress results in water and gas main breaks, and each of these issues starts a cascade. And for those that say the daily earth wobble is still just a theory, I would suggest you check on what Mrs. Sakamaki in Wisconsin does. It's posted on the Ning, the pole shift Ning. Every day she goes out and registers where the sun is, azimuth-wise and time-wise, and sunsets, etc., and she documents that we are in a wobble. This in addition to what I did 20 years ago with a team around the globe, 12 different people measuring azimuth, altitude, times, etc., establishing that as you look down upon the North Pole, the Earth goes in a figure eight, pushed away, pushed back, to the left, to the right, and then again the next day. So this is a palpable, measurable fact, the daily Earth wobble. Due to all the rain Texas has received of late, the Houston Dam on Lake Dunlap in Texas failed on May 17th of this year. Torrential rainfall does more than cause flooding. It can cause dams to breach in a cascade events. Ground motion also affects the stability of dams. In the opinion of the Zetas, all dams will breach, and I quote Zeta Talk. All dams will break either during the pole shift or in the months leading up to the hour of the shift. Look at the structure of the dam. It assumes that rock holding both sides of the dam will remain in place and not move. Of course these sides will move. They are pulled apart, slide forward or backward, but in any case the water will find its way around the dam. End of the quote. Hoover Dam. As predicted in the movie San Andreas, or as depicted rather, the Hoover Dam breach would be catastrophic for those living downstream. In the opinion of the Zetas, the Hoover Dam touches solid rock on either side, so other than topping over, it will backwash up into Las Vegas during the predicted New Madrid adjustment coming. But during the hour of the pole shift, the Hoover will not hold. Oroville Dam. The problems with Oroville Dam in California in 2017 were billed as being due to excessive rain, but the frantic efforts to shore up the dam indicate problems that are not being admitted. The spillway split and spread into an abutting hillside, eroding this, but the water was still directed correctly. Excessive water caused the emergency spillway to be used for the first time. Everyone was told to evacuate. In 2019, more problems emerged. After spending $1.2 billion to rebuild the spillway and emergency spillway, they malfunctioned, showing a rumpled washway. In the opinion of the Zetas, the subduction of the Pacific plates caused this rumple, ruining the concrete as it poured and hardened. The Hanson Dam. In 2009, sinkholes around the earthen Hanson Dam in Washington state appeared, and a weakened dam holding back Lake Cumberland in Kentucky forced the lake level to be dropped. So if you live downstream from a dam and think you are safe when the last weeks arrive, beware. All dams will breach. The Brazil province of Minas Gerais has had two dam disasters, one in 2015, the Mariana Dam holding iron ore tailings burst, killing 19 people and polluting the Doce River all the way to the Atlantic. The Zetas had warned that the province of Minas Gerais would be understretched during their predicted South American role, which appears to be another example of a correct Zeta Talk prediction. Now, a second earthen dam in the province of Minas Gerais has occurred in 2019 at Brumadinho. This, with a death rate of over 300 people, though most of the bodies have not yet been found under the mud. Train derailments can be caused by a number of issues and are on the increase as a cascade event. They are seldom explained, as can be seen by the under-investigation excuses offered. The ground can shift or tilt temporarily during the earth wobble, particularly in stretch zones where rock layers are pulled apart. In the opinion of the Zetas, this shifting is very much in evidence lately. Quoting Zeta Talk, what happens to rock layers under a diagonal pull or being pulled apart? As can be seen during recent years, this has resulted in derailing trains, sinkholes suddenly appearing, gas and water main breaks, torn roadways, and separating bridges. In 2013, the effect on how drastically moving earth or landslides can affect train tracks showed up when the White Cliffs of Dover in the UK had a landslide. The photo of those twisted tracks leaves no doubt what would happen to a hapless train trying to chug along on its route. Just this past March and April in New Zealand, where, and I quote, an investigation is underway after a freight train traveling from Palmerston North to Napier derailed last night, spilling 6 loads of logs, and the Congo River, where the goods train veered off the track as it was crossing a bridge over a river, and South Africa, where 3 carriages of the locomotive went off the tracks at the Elandsforein railroad station near Jet Park Road. It's unclear what led to the derailment. And Pennsylvania, where, and I quote, the cause of the derailment remains under investigation. It's always that way. You never hear afterwards, unless they can blame somebody, like, perhaps the guy didn't throw the switch right and it went down the wrong track. But, lately they've stopped trying to do that. Used to be blame the pilot if the plane went down and blame the engineer. Lately they just say under investigation, and then you never hear. Landslides are on the increase, again just since Nibiru arrived in 2003. This is painstakingly palpable, most often accounted for by big dollar losses. Landslides can result because of tilting or stretching ground, or due to water-soaked ground. They occur worldwide. Now, regarding this 2003 Nibiru arrived, that's another thing extremely well documented. We tracked it in 2001 and 2 in the night sky according to the Zeta coordinates given. And there was a dim star that appeared at the coordinates that was not on the star charts. And then 2 weeks later, when we took more images, it had moved to the new location, and where it was at the old location, gone. And then it arrived in 2003. People all over the world saw it in then still the night sky, including yours truly. And I am here to say I saw it in the night sky as like a flickering thingy, and it was not that red star that's to the right of Orion. It was above that. Everybody around the world saw it, and then it moved across the Earth's orbit closer to the sun and got lost in the sun's glare. Since then, people have been photographing it. People have been seeing second sunrise, sunset. If you use a proper filter like a Mylar or the insert of a floppy disk, filtering 4 light spectrum red. Whoa, there it all is, all the moon squirrels, etc. This is not a theory at all. If you think it is, just type Nibiru into a search engine and go look at the plethora of stuff that people are throwing up. Okay, landslides. Water mains. Shifting ground can put stress on water and gas mains, which snap or leak. Rock layers slide over each other or sag or heave. These issues are explained as old pipes giving way, but why the sudden increase? As the earth plates are under pressure or stretch, this is yet another Cascade event. In 2010, on the San Andreas as it crosses the San Francisco Peninsula, officials are trying to determine the cause of a gas explosion. In 2009, in Puerto Rico, which lies parallel to the collapsing Puerto Rico Trench, where a fuel storage facility exploded, cause unknown. Hissing gas from a broken gas pipe takes but a spark to become an explosion. And we have these factory explosions, and they never say why. But if you have piping in a refinery, as happened recently in Pennsylvania, then the pipes pull apart a little bit. There you go, a spark, and whammo, the whole thing. You're sitting on fuel. And then they can't figure out what caused it because it's all just littered everywhere. Everything burned to a crisp, for miles around. The daily Earth wobble has created erratic weather, both intractable drought and deluge. In 2007, we had drought in the Okeechobee swamp in Florida, which eventually burst into flames in 2017. The drought increased its grip into 2012. Quoting USA Today in 2007, deep cracks cover the bottom of what should be 5-foot deep Lake Okeechobee near Okeechobee, Florida in early May. The lake broke a record for its all-time water level low. But worldwide, we were beginning to see deluge from Japan to Europe to Canada, often accompanied by huge hail. Talking about that, look what just happened in Guadalajara. They had almost 5 feet of hail dumped on them out of the blue. The Zetas had warned of drought and deluge, sudden switching about. Quoting Zeta Talk, we warned at the start of Zeta Talk in 1995 that unpredictable weather extremes, switching about from drought to deluge, would occur and increase on a lineal basis up until the pole shift. We explained the increasing weather irregularities in the context of the global wobble that had ensued, weather wobbles where the Earth is suddenly forced under the air masses, churning them. End of the Zeta Talk quote. Now in 2019, the U.S. can hardly find cover from the deluge. Whatever happened to the great drought of 2012 that appeared to be rivaling the drought during the Great Depression? In April of 2019, the Midwest had so much rain that the farmers feared they would not be able to plant at all that year. In Nebraska alone, over 1 million calves were lost to the floods, drowned. Grain bins were destabilized and collapsed into the floodwaters. The public was being warned to anticipate higher food prices and empty shelves. The U.S. was fast losing its status as a food basket of the world. This was all a cascade event caused by the daily Earth wobble. The crop shortage in the U.S., considered to be the breadbasket of the world, is astonishing. The immediate impact is likely to be failure to send food elsewhere around the world and higher prices in the U.S. Quoting the National Geographic, the U.S. Department of Agriculture monitors crop progress during the planting season, and on May 28th, they reported that only 58% of the corn that could be planted was in the ground. For soybeans, it was only 29%. That's a big deal for U.S. farmers who supply a quarter of the world's grains, a category that includes corn, wheat, and rice. End of the quote. And these rains and floods continued into the summer, rolling into flooding all along the great Mississippi River. This is not global warming, a fraud that was invented to explain away the anticipated Earth changes to be caused by Nibiru. If all this was due to global warming, then how to explain the increase in earthquakes and volcanic activity, or the increase in bolides and fireballs screaming through the atmosphere? This is a cascade event caused by the daily Earth wobble, which is palpable and can be proven. The drought and deluge cycles take their toll on food production. Drought shrivels crops, and the baked ground is too hard then to accept rain when it finally comes. Flooded fields kill seedlings. In 2007, the Aussie PM, Howard, told the public to pray for rain. In the past decades, droughts have also decimated food production in India, China, Eurasia, South America, and Africa. Temperature swings also occur during the daily Earth wobble, killing the buds of fruit trees. There goes the apple harvest, as the trees will not reset their buds until the next year. Seedlings already sprouting in the fields can be frost-killed and require replanting if the farmers have enough seed. Heat stress can also cause food shortages, just as was the case in February of 2019 in Argentina and Uruguay, where heat stress killed thousands of cows and chickens. The Zetas predicted that, in their opinion, starvation would occur worldwide as the time of their predicted Nibiru passage approached, and this seems to be upon us. Quoting Zeta Talk at the start of the Zeta Talk saga in 1995. As we described earlier, going into the cataclysms, the weather will become unpredictable, with torrential rainstorms were not expected, and droughts likewise were not expected. Extremes of temperature will be experienced. Unusually warm winters where the trees and shrubs will start to bud, thinking spring, and then be subjected to frost. Similarly, frosts will come late into spring, almost into summer, killing the buds which have already put forth their tender shoots. Where today the world balances these situations, shipping produce around the world, during the years coming close to the time of the reappearance of Nibiru, the giant comet, all parts of the world will experience extremes. End of the Zeta Talk quote. In India in 2019, India was in the grip of the most prolonged heat wave ever. Temps reached as high as 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Wild monkeys died and roads melted. The cause? A delayed monsoon. Note that statistically, India's hottest years have been since 2004, when Nibiru arrived in the inner solar system in 2003. Quoting Earth Observatory, 11 of India's 15 warmest years have occurred since 2004. 2018 was the sixth warmest year for the country since record-keeping started in 1901. In 2019, sparse rainfall during the pre-monsoon season, along with a delayed monsoon, have made the heat more unbearable. Monsoon weather has been running about a week late, end of the quote, and quoting CNN. Raghavan Krishna of the India Institute of Tropical Meteorology told CNN that the heat waves are becoming more intense and frequent. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia also recorded high heat, the highest in the world at 145 degrees Fahrenheit on June 16th. In the opinion of the Zetas, this high heat is due to the daily Earth wobble, which causes the North Pole to lean to the right and then to the left when it is over India and Saudi Arabia, thus bringing those areas to a lower latitude. Just check it out. Just move your globe around, you can see. The lower latitude puts them closer to the tropics and lets in more sun. Drought obviously cascades to increased wildfires, which have been afflicting the world beyond poor, perpetually afflicted California and the American Southwest. There have been wildfires in Australia, the UK, Siberia, the Balkans, Canada, the Arctic, and even the Arctic within the past few years. In 2019, wildfires in Alberta, Canada were so large and so vast that the smoke reached Europe. These fires were out of control and could not be stopped. This was considered to be due to a combination of drought and warm weather. Quoting AccuWeather, the combination of prolonged, unseasonably warm weather and severe drought have encouraged the rapid spread of these fires. Typically, we do not see large fires like this so early in the season. End of the quote. Tornadoes caused by shifting air masses are also on the increase. And in that air masses are jerked about by the daily Earth wobble, this is another cascade event. The Zetas predicted that tornadoes would appear in atypical places, and they have. But the most dramatic evidence of this cascade event is in the U.S., not only through what is known as Tornado Alley in Oklahoma and Kansas, but across a wide swath of the U.S. The battering in 2019 has become almost nonstop. Tornadoes can be up to a mile wide and are unstoppable. On May 27th, Memorial Day in the U.S., 52 tornadoes touched down across 8 states in waves of severe weather swept across the nation. As 14 suspected tornadoes touched down in Indiana, 10 in Colorado, 9 in Ohio, 6 in Iowa, 5 in Nebraska, 4 in Illinois, 3 in Minnesota, and 1 in Idaho. Many arrived during the night. Increasing illness is another cascade event, as the Earth wobble causes opportunistic germs to migrate to warmer regions. Untreated sewage caused by flood breach treatment plants likewise pose dangers to disease outbreaks. As these breaches increase, many parts of the world used to clean water have had to adjust to raw sewage in the vicinity. In the opinion of the Zetas in 1998, and I quote, "Increasingly as the pole shift nears, the populace will take sick. The germs are on the move. Their carriers are on the move." End quote. In 2017, the Black Death emerged in Madagascar from the flea-infested rats, a population explosion and migration caused by heavy El Nino and La Nina rains, making this a cascade event. The island of Madagascar has an annual tradition of digging up the dead and dancing with the corpses. Long-lived bacteria thus are awakened anew from the corpses. The Black Death killed 100 million people in Europe in the past. The Black Death is carried by flea-infested rats and resides in the American Southwest in prairie dogs. Historically, plague was found in Mongolia, then spread to China, then via trade with Europe spread throughout Europe. Flea-infested rats on the ships were the carriers, and then there were the main carriers into the cities in Europe. Human-to-human infection also occurred via airborne version of the plague called pneumonic plague. Diseases such as cholera, polio, and hepatitis are all waterborne diseases. Where a polio vaccine exists, attempts to stamp out such diseases fail as epidemics resurge periodically. In 2018, polio was endemic in India and Pakistan, and outbreaks recorded in Indonesia and several African countries. In Venezuela, the collapsing infrastructure, primarily electrical outages, is responsible for the lack of potable water. In Venezuela, the lack of potable water and flushing toilets will cause disease to spread. The populace is drinking water from nearby streams and from water pouring through the sewers. I kid you not, probably from rain, but still, gosh. Increasing floods, broken sewage mains, or overwashing of the sewage treatment plants add to these latent epidemics. The flooding in Texas in 2015 shows how vulnerable sewage treatment plants are. Waterborne infections are without question a Cascade event. Migrating germs are making homeless tent cities and big cities an infection nightmare. San Francisco has the homeless popping up in the streets. And in LA, the cops have come down with typhus fever and the bubonic plague. Endemic in the southwest U.S. is feared next. And folks, that's the end of my prepared statement. I guess we got time remaining, huh, Andre? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
What should we talk
bit.
about? Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit before we started the show today about some of the changes, not so much physical changes of the Earth, but the changes of the mindset of the people of the Earth. And I think with the recent events with the G20 and with, the whole European Union breakup thing that's about to happen. I don't know if that's news to anybody, but after Brexit, I think the whole thing's going to fall apart, in my opinion, the whole EU. And, it seems like for me, in my perspective here in Wisconsin, looking at it through the lens of the internet, I guess, for me, I just see that a lot of people are just kind of fed up with being fed the same old status quo, this is the way we do it kind of thing, and that's showing in how these folks are making decisions as leaders, I guess. And, the waking up process is not, for some people it's not exactly, easy. So, May crying when she meets Putin,
right.
and it's like, oh, don't cry, honey. It's okay. You're fired.
Yeah,
it's all right.
It's not okay. And Merkel shakes, and Pelosi was shaking one time too. Everybody's saying, well, what's up with Merkel? But, it's not the traditional theories, like she's been eating human brains and therefore has Kubru and all that. Kubru, when it comes on, it doesn't go away. This was something that came on and went away. And I thought, well, maybe it's low blood sugar because she's probably diabetic. She's chubby German. I'm a chubby German woman. I'm diabetic. I know what low blood sugar is. And it does act like that. You do shake all over, and then you collapse. But you can get that way if you're frightened. If you have a lot of fear or anger that you're suppressing, you can begin to shake all over, like a dog. A dog will tremble in fear, if they're really frightened and they want to run away and they can't run. The whole body trembles, So that's the only thing that really seems to fit. So what is she afraid of? Well, she's losing her place in Germany. She invited in all these migrants. It's become a disaster. Europe is no longer saying, "Oh, all right, we'll take another million." They're causing all kinds of grief all over Europe. Sweden, all the rapes and everything in Germany too. And May, she's losing her place because of Brexit. She lost the last election. They ran a referendum. She's got to step aside, let someone else take over. So has Merkel to do that. So neither one of them is going to be in charge anymore. And for anybody that seems to be the royalty in Europe, they're losing out. So, but I think there's something more about all of this. I think Nibiru is no longer going to be suppressed. It's too obvious, not only in the violent weather swings and all of that, but, where's the sun? It's there, it's here, and oh no, it's set 2 hours too late yesterday. What? It goes on like that, and people can see it, and they can actually begin to see something around the sun. Naked eye, I get all this email. Look, I looked at it, and there was these bright orbs over there to the right or the left of this, and then they take photos, and I say, yep, you caught it. Those are moon swirls. So if they can see it naked eye, well, there's a lot of buzz around the coffee pot at the office or whatever, right? Now, the Zetas have said that half of humanity will remain in denial, even if it's falling on their head. They'll say, "Oh no," because it's just too terrible to deal with, and when it's too terrible to deal with, you don't. You just say, "Oh, can't be true. It's just too awful." And so half, 50%. So now you've got 50% of people that say, "Holy cow! Now what are we going to do?" And they do a little research and they realize that they've got to move, up into the hinterland and to Uncle Bob's farm, and try to help him milk the goats and get some more chickens and, and all that. And the wife says, "Oh no, we can't take the children out of school." And I like shopping at the nearby whatever, buying new shoes and being and maybe it's the guy who's flaky and won't go along with it. And I'm just saying most often maybe it's the husband who's going to be more practical, and say, we got to leave. But you're going to have this. You're going to have divorces happen, and people, one parent may snatch the kids and go to Uncle Bob's and to heck with whatever, because they just can't stand thinking of their children drowning there when the big waves start coming in, So you will begin to have reactions in the populace where you then take a look at one of the big stops on let's admit Nibiru is real and the pole shift is coming is the banking enterprise. You have all these mortgages on the coast. Most people live on the coast or in river bottoms paying hefty mortgages, right? Well, why should they pay a mortgage in a house that's going to be flooded, underwater, and ruined or washed out to sea or maybe forever underwater? So they stop paying the mortgage. They stop paying their credit cards. They stop paying student loan or whatever debts. And the bank is like, the bankers' salaries are gone. That type of thing will happen. And so we'll see some of that. Then we're going to have rioting. And there will be people who say, who's going to take care of me? What about my welfare check or whatever? Who's going to take care of me? And they're rioting and they're looting and they're so of course martial law follows. Here come the tanks, because and if we have any kind of major earth changes like the New Madrid in the U.S. giving and ripping, which it's going to, in a couple of months I'm going to do a New Madrid show and go through all the recent evidence that the New Madrid, that the North American continent is creaking and creaking. It's in a bow. It's about ready. And the New Madrid is a diagonal rip. The southeast goes one way and the southwest goes another way. South and the southeast goes north. And that diagonal rip will tear all the bridges in the Mississippi, to say nothing of bringing these cities like Memphis and Cincinnati or even Chicago will get torn up. Then you've got all kinds of people that you've got to put in survival camps. Move them out somewhere to Nebraska or wherever, plunk them down, say, here's your tents, here's your gardening tools, here's your seed, and here's your baby chicks. Take care of yourself. I mean, we're having a low food year in the U.S. The crops can't be planted, and we're going to go into our stores, and then the stores will be emptied, and then what? So every country, Canada's had a crop shortage too, a disasters. Some are good, some are not, but they're not going to balance out in the future. It's going to be learn to eat weeds and learn to eat bugs, and I'm telling you, you can eat well. That's a whole other subject. What do you think, Andre?
Right. And well, I tell you, we've done a couple of, going back to the New Madrid episode coming up, we've done a couple of exposés, I guess, or explanations of the New Madrid adjustment and signs that it's impending. I will say, though, some of these gas explosions and derailments and bridges out, and then the subsequent, we could blame it on EMP, all these plane crashes and train problems, not that there's derailments, but the train electrical problems. We've seen some of that. All of these things are being, like you said earlier in today's episode, they're being blamed on something else or swept under the rug or under the investigation at some point. these earth changes are going to be to the fact where, I mean, you're seeing it right now around all the flooding in the Midwest with these bridges and things being and detours because it's flooded out. Just imagine if those bridges are actually ripped out from the movement of the earth, whether that be a landslide or an earthquake. And the New Madrid adjustment has happened in the past. Maybe not as violent as the one we've got coming up, but it has happened in the past, and there's evidence that the Mississippi flowed the other direction. And
yes, it did.
But the last time it happened, there wasn't millions of people living in the areas that were effective. It was farmlands, and cows were like, "Wow, that mound moved." Okay, go back to eating cud.
Exactly right. And it had changed its course. It had to adjust, because the Mississippi heaved, and then it meandered in a different place. And it runs all the way up and then turns near Chicago and runs under the seaway all the way to the northeast, rang bells in Boston, church bells in Boston. And it destabilized buildings in Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston. I know that because when I went on vacation once there was the big bolt running from one side of the building to the next. What's that for? Oh, they had to pull it together after the 1811, 1812 earthquake. And it's caused liquefaction. It was felt over a huge area because they said it was only like an 8 or something, but it was liquefaction. That constant jiggling will bring a building down faster than anything. It's not just the jolt. It's the which causes things to fall sideways and keep going, and not stop. So it's very destructive. So what happens to Chicago? Well, Chicago has had canals underneath the infrastructure down deep because they ran lake water through to create a canal where they could boat down to the Mississippi. We'll just take our produce down to Mississippi and maybe back up or whatever. Those canals are still there. They may be stopped. They may not be pouring water. But the problem is that they're there, and when you have a lot of jolting this way and that way, if they open, now what? Now you have Lake Michigan pouring under the canal outlets, all the way through. And what's that going to do to Chicago? Pouring water like that grinds away, eats away at mud and infrastructure. It scours it away. So you're going to have a devastation in Chicago from the New Madrid, even though it's not on the fault line. And this is what the Zetas have said, and this is what is patently obvious if you do a little research. So that's in the opinion of the Zetas, folks, in the opinion. It's not yet a Zeta talk. Zeta's right again, although so many things are. So there you go. Just a terrible devastation, and here's the biggie on the Mississippi bridges ripping. Guess where the oil and gas from the refineries down there by Houston, etc., go? They go over to the Mississippi, and these big pipelines cross the Mississippi under the bridges or whatever and go on to the whole East Coast. That's where you get your oil, your gas, your natural gas, whatever, So if they rip, you're going to have more than just, the gas pumps have run dry. You're going to have a big fire, because this stuff will be open, and it'll burn up, and then now you've got a lost produce, to run your cars. Oh well, we can load it onto boats and truck around Florida and go to the East Coast. So don't expect to drive your car after the New Madrid. You're likely to be get that old bike out and pedal and get in shape. Wow.
No, how about you just get your safe location now?
Yeah, well, then the people are always trying to wait till the last minute.
That's just too easy.
Too easy. I get asked every day by people, when is this going to happen? Can you give me a date?
I'll wait till the last minute.
Yeah, because
I'll do it the
we
day
have
before.
plans. We want to know if we can go to Disneyland and So I said,
I'll just go to Walmart for supplies.
Yeah.
I hear that one all the time. Well, when it happens, I'll just go to Walmart for supplies. I'm
right.
like, yeah, you're the only one thinking of that.
Yeah,
you're
just the only one. Right. my only compensation for Wisconsin, where we have so many fatties here, we're a fat state, that they're gonna live off their fat for a while before they are a good work ethic state, so eventually they'll get it right. But yeah, I always say don't go
cheese, beer, and sausage diet. I don't know.
Yeah,
the cheese will run out. The beer will run out first. The first thing they're going to go is beer, and that's going to pee a lot of people off, man. And pick them off.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But I always say, don't go to Disneyland. Instead, you got kids, find a small farm in the hinterland if you don't have an Uncle Bob, and make them a deal. They're not running the farm because they're an old couple and they have hand tools and they have some pigs and geese and this and that and a couple cows and but they don't do a lot. Maybe they got one field that they keep running because they just don't have the oomph anymore. They're old. So you go and you've got kids, teenagers or whatever, and you pay them what you would have paid to go to Disneyland to come to the farm and help them with the chores. The kids will have a blast. They love hands-on stuff. This is unusual, and they can learn by doing. The older couple will get everything improved, everything spiffed up, and there you. And now you have a friend. You have a place to go when it really gets serious, because this old couple remembers you. You're part of the family. You can say, "Well, can we come out?" And we go, "Oh, sure. The bunk beds are ready anytime. Come on." So think. I mean, if you're clever and you're resourceful, you can find a way around your dilemma other than just sitting there in your city or suburban home wondering what should you do. Well, by the way, you can have gardens in the city too. You know that, Andre. You do city gardening, don't you? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Community gardens. You can also do container patio gardens, that sort of thing. I've seen a lot of great work in urban gardening with pallets or drain gutters as containers.
Yep.
And then you could also do guerrilla gardening too. Start throwing some seeds here and yon, and eventually you'll have Johnny Appleseed out there. But hey, don't waste your seeds that way. If you have a plan and some land and a way to garden in the future, seed saving is important. So don't just, I'm just kidding about guerrilla gardening, but you can use your seeds specifically for what you want to do and practice. That's the best thing that you can do.
But this is not a bad idea. There was a fella in L.A. who hit the news. I love it when it hits the news. And he was planting banana plants around the streets of some slum in L.A., and there was a empty swimming pool, and he planted it around the sides, and they would use the water in the swimming pool to water, and he had peppers growing and banana plants. Was teaching the kids how to do this. It wasn't even his land, but he was being Johnny Appleseed there and teaching children how to garden. You can't do better than that. It was wonderful. So we have a lot of role models out there. I try to feature them in my newsletters. You don't always get a chance to do it, but it's not all bad news because there's so much good stuff that's going to come out of this. Think of it. You don't have to punch the time clock. In the schools out for the kids, they love hands-on activity rather than sitting. Now sit still. It's story hour. We're going to tell you about George Washington. They don't want that. They want activity, growth. They want to do important things. Whatever the adults are doing, that's the important stuff. Children love to be at your knee, helping out. I mean, you can't get them away from you, and you're doing something important. That's. They know that's important, and they want to be involved. So think creatively and resourcefully.
Yeah, make it fun.
Yes. Yeah. It's not hard.
Well, if you make it fun, then it's less like work, because it's fun.
Yeah.
Plus, if you get to actually eat the stuff you're growing too, that helps.
Yeah, that's fun too. Yeah. Well, you can say, you can't help me. This is important stuff. You have to go over there and say, I don't want to go and sit. I want to. All right, you can help me. Then it becomes fun.
Right.
You tell them they can't do it, and they want to do it.
The old Tom Sawyer trick.
Yes, that's right.
Paint the fence. Whitewashing the fence is such a grand job. You should come and take a look. Thanks, Nancy. Another great show.
Yes.
Look forward